What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Love and Rice podcast with your host, Aunt Ma.
I'm your other host, Christina.
And if you guys are new to this podcast, make sure to subscribe and follow on all podcast platforms and also on YouTube. We are also on all social media, such as Instagram and TikTok. So make sure to give us a follow, give us a rating on Spotify if you can. And in this episode, this is a tough one. It's been a while since something like this has happened, but we want to talk about it.
And I think the reason why we wanted to talk about it was because it was something that we haven't really brought up in a while, and it did come up in one of our last episodes. And I don't think we realized like how much it still has an impact on our lives until that happened.
Right. So what we're talking about is people get mad when they say we, but Christina, had a miscarriage. And anyone who's trying to go through this baby making phase, trying to get pregnant, have kids, going through a miscarriage and having one is one of the hardest things that you can go through.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you're not prepared for it. And I feel like a lot of people don't expect it when you're trying to have a baby, right? So like every time I see people like posting about stuff, I'm like, wow, like this is so crazy. Like it's still something that happens to like a lot of women like on a daily basis.
So over the years, you guys have seen what we went through from our YouTube channel, right? It's kind of what really jump-started our YouTube journey, seeing the miscarriage that she went through to actually now having kids. But we never really got to share our own stories and personal experiences of what actually happened that night and everything after that. So this is the episode where we're going to talk about it. And it all started with us talking about trying to have kids, and this was 5 years into our marriage. Right. So like the first 5 years we weren't really thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. I think it was more of like us just being in the moment. And I feel like when we decided to start like recording these moments that we're having, we're thinking more of like celebrating and going through happy moments and like having this first experience together and like making announcements to friends and doing all these things that people get to do when they get pregnant. And I don't think we were prepared for this at all. And I feel like people who watched our videos from the beginning, they pretty much experienced what we did as we're going through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So when we first started talking about having kids, I as a future dad, I was getting really excited, and I was thinking, what if we can record this whole process and just I want to see the whole journey of this family growing, right? I was so happy for that.
Mm-hmm.
And to see you go to this pregnancy journey. And so that's when we started, recording our life.
Right.
And so some of you don't really understand how difficult it is to have a baby and get pregnant. It's not something that just like you have sex and it happens, with a snap of fingers.
For some people it does. So when
it's
crazy,
rare.
right?
Like, well, that's what we thought, right?
Yeah.
When we were first trying to have kids. And so, when we first decided, okay, let's move forward with having a kid, it wasn't fast for us. I think it was like
it took about like 2 to 3 months of trying in order for me to get pregnant. And I think like before we would always see people and they would just always be popping out kids, right? So you're just like, oh, it's so easy, like just one time and you're done and you're pregnant,
right? So like after 2 months of trying, I was thinking, well, what's going on? How this isn't easy, like I thought this was something that was supposed to be very simple. So I started to get a little bit worried, but after 3 or 4 months, then you actually got pregnant, right? You took the test, it said you're positive, and then we're happy, right?
Yeah.
I was so happy. I think we probably both cried at that moment because we were like, I can't believe it took this long.
Yeah, because we kept waiting to see a positive, but then the whole time we were just kind of like trying to prepare ourselves for that negative too. So I felt like it was a huge shock, but it was also like a sigh of relief for us.
So when we first found out through taking the test, then we had to find, a doctor, and we called the doctor,
Yeah.
and the doctor says, let's make an appointment for when you are pregnant for at least 7 weeks,
Yes.
right? And so the reason why the doctor says to wait 7 weeks is because when they do an ultrasound is where they rub a device, a controller on her belly, and there's a screen, and you can see inside her belly, and usually you'll get either a heartbeat, you'll get a little baby or a little dot.
Yeah, you'll see a little sac in there, and then the goal is to be able to find like a little baby inside that's growing.
So we saw a sac, right? We saw that hole,
right?
And then we were trying to find a heartbeat, right? So during this time, what did the doctor say?
So I think we were just so excited because we saw the sack, and then we're just like, okay, we're just waiting to hear something, right? But I can't remember. I feel like did we see something in there? Like there's a little dot, right?
There was a little something.
Yeah, but we didn't know what to expect from it. We didn't know how the baby was supposed to look. But,
in my eyes, I was just like, oh my gosh, that's our baby.
Right. And the longer it took her, like she kept trying to move it around to try to like find the baby's heartbeat. And I think we were just so confused. And after a while, she's just like, I can't find the heartbeat. Like there's nothing, and that being our first experience, like this doctor was also, she didn't have the best bedside manners. So I feel like it made it so much harder because she was just like, oh, well, there's nothing. Like you're not going to find anything because like there's nothing there or whatever. I don't know I don't remember, but she was just saying stuff where we're just like, wait, like what's happening? Like she didn't try to ease us into it. It was just more of like, oh, well, yeah, there's nothing.
So basically she was saying that she couldn't find a heartbeat. And so she kind of stopped after that. She's so experienced in this because, the doctors do this like, I don't know, 10 times a day or even more, right? So it should be easy for them to find the sound of a heartbeat.
Right.
And so when she couldn't find it, my initial thought was like, well, can you try harder?
Yeah.
Like, you got to keep looking. Like, don't give up, but she just stopped and she already knew. She was like, there's no heartbeat. There's no baby. You're not pregnant. And that kind of got us a little upset. We're like, wait a minute. Is this the right doctor? Like, she didn't even try. Should we get a second opinion on this? Should we go see someone else and see if they can find a heartbeat? And so when we got back home, we pretty much prayed every night, hoping that she would be wrong and we were too early. And, maybe we'll go back in a week or two and then we'll hear a heartbeat.
Right.
Because they said sometimes between 8 to 10 weeks, you'll actually hear the baby's heartbeat. And so, we waited till that time. Yeah.
I think she saw us like prior to the 7 weeks too. And this is the reason why I think they make it, they're more, what is the word for it? Before they're very lenient because people will get excited and they're like, oh, I want to go see the baby now. Like, even though it's only 6 weeks, but now they're just like very strict about it now. And I think it's like waiting at least 8 weeks because even before that time frame, even at 8 weeks, sometimes you won't be able to hear a heartbeat. And then people will stress out, especially like the pregnant mom, right? And you're stressing and the baby can feel it. And then later on, you might come back in like, I don't know, a week or two, and then you have a strong heartbeat. So I've heard these stories like ever since that first appointment. I kept researching things, trying to look up like forums and posts from other people like who've gone through it. And I kept giving myself so much hope because I was like, oh, well, this person had this and, they couldn't find a heartbeat. And then like a few weeks later, like they found one and they saw a baby and everything was good. So I feel like we just kept giving ourselves that little bit of hope, like thinking we're going to find the baby.
There were so many comments and stories of people saying they didn't hear a heartbeat till like 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Which is pretty rare, now that we've been through this whole process. Like, you should hear something by like 8 weeks, for the most part. But what was going through your head at that moment when she told you, there was no baby?
I mean, I felt very devastated because like, I think we just kept holding on to like every bit of hope until the actual like miscarriage happened. We're just like, nope. Like, and I think it's just because of the way that she communicated it to us. And I feel like it's so important to find a good OB that has good bedside manners, because she didn't help us to like ease into the situation. It was kind of like having a Asian tiger mom who's very blunt, and it's just like, oh, well, there's nothing. I can't find anything for you. Like, there's no baby. Like, there's, of course, there's not gonna be a heartbeat. There's nothing there. And I'm like, whoa, like, can you say it in a nicer way? You know what I mean? So I feel like that just made it harder for the both of us because of the way she communicated it.
Was your body already changing? Because literally when you take the P test on a stick, it says you're pregnant.
Right.
Right. And when we get those sticks, you're like, this stick is not gonna lie and tell you you're not pregnant when it's showing that you are.
And I think we took multiple tests too. I think we took at least like
three, at least three,
2 or 3 to make sure it was correct. And then you do feel a difference. Like for me, my body's very sensitive, so like I know when I'm pregnant. Like your breasts get very tender. You start feeling a little bit nauseous. Like I felt every symptom possible while being pregnant. Like even in the beginning.
That's why I was like, there's no way you're not pregnant.
Yeah.
You know? And so at that same time, we're still thinking that we're going to be parents, and we're going through this rabbit hole on our phone of like how to be the best parents. Then I'm looking up like type of foods that my wife can eat during pregnancy, and like trying to take care of her health, the baby's health. You know, we're trying to be really good parents here. And so like all the hope is like trying to continue for you to have this kid, right?
Yeah.
And what happens that night? This one night.
The night of the actual miscarriage?
Yeah.
So I just remember having like really bad cramps, and it's like worse than period cramps.
Were you sleeping?
I don't remember.
I remember this kind of being like about 11 p.m., 12 a.m. type of thing.
Yeah, I don't remember like the time at all, because it was just like so crazy, and I feel like everything just kind of happened so quickly. But like I was feeling cramping, and then I just kept having to use the restroom, and then after a while, like I started feeling like, I don't know what it was. Like I just really had to use the bathroom, and then as I was using it, it was kind of like you're trying to go like number 2, and then you just start seeing like blood coming out. You see like these blood clots and like tissue.
Were you in pain?
Yeah, it hurt. Like I remember being on the ground because the cramping was hurting so much. And I don't know, like I was so traumatized just seeing the amount of blood. Like it's so different from having a period, and then also feeling all of the pain that was with it. Like pretty much just being on the floor, right, in fetal position, and then having to get up and not have strength and have to go back onto the toilet to try to let whatever go through your body, and then seeing little things in the toilet, and I'm just like, is that the baby? It was like blood clots and like pieces of tissue, so it's kind of like deteriorating from my body. And I was just so I was so sad, and I was just like, are these pieces of the baby that never formed? Like, is this what I'm seeing? Is that our baby?
I remember when I looked in the toilet and I saw the water was all red.
Yeah.
It was disgusting, right? And then I saw this ball, this big, dark, reddish purple ball. And I was like, what is that? Like, is that the baby?
Right.
You know? And now after experiencing it, I feel like that was your sac that came out, which was supposed to hold the baby.
Maybe.
You know?
Yeah.
And so when I saw that, I was terrified. I was like, oh my God, let's get you to a hospital, you know? And I remember your stomach was hurting so much. And, you know, the doctor said, yeah, go to the ER right now. Right. And,
also, I mean, for something like this, it sounds kind of graphic when I'm thinking about it. I'm like, do we need to put a trigger warning for people? Trigger warning, okay? There's a lot of details about what happened with the
you can't say it after.
I know, but it's too late. Because as we're going through it, I'm like, oh, a lot of people might not know about this, and some people might get triggered by hearing it and experiencing it again. But I feel like it's also good to understand like what the signs are, like if you are experiencing a miscarriage or you're getting to that point, because for us, we didn't understand any of this at all because we never been through it. So some people, they automatically will get a D&C, they'll get scheduled for a procedure to like clean everything out and suck all of that stuff out. Some people naturally go through the miscarriage like I did, but then I didn't completely clean everything out of my system. So when we went to that hospital, then it was getting scheduled for that DNC where they clean
So,
everything out.
do you remember how you felt besides like the pain that you're feeling? I
Uh
guess the emotional feeling.
yeah, I think I was really sad and I was already getting depressed because that let me know like that we weren't gonna have this baby anymore and that
Because when we're still at home, we weren't sure if you're having a miscarriage, right? We didn't know what was going on.
yeah, we didn't know what was going on, but for sure I was like, this is it. That's when it started settling in where it was confirmed that I am going through something and this baby is not sticking. But I think I still had that little bit of hope throughout the entire thing until up until I had to get the procedure done. I was like, oh, maybe this is normal because I also saw stories of other people saying like I was spotting, I was bleeding, but when I went to get checked out at the hospital, the baby was fine, you know?
Right. So when we actually got to the hospital, um, you had to sign in and stuff, and we waited a really, really long time for someone to see you.
Mm-hmm.
And we got lucky that we knew someone at the hospital and they helped you and they pushed you through. But imagine Christina or any other, mom who is going through the worst stomach pains ever because they're probably going through a miscarriage. They lost a lot of blood and we're waiting like 2 hours in a waiting room for her to get looked at, and to even find out an answer for her to get checked and to find out is there a baby or not,
Mm-hmm.
so like it was probably one of the worst nights that we've had. But when you finally got checked in and they ran all the tests, and they said it. They said, "I'm sorry, there's no baby."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they said I went through a miscarriage pretty much. So I was pregnant, it's just the baby didn't stick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I was feeling the symptoms and everything.
So um, I think we stayed there the rest of the night, right?
N- I don't know. We were there for a long time. I didn't stay overnight. They actually discharged us and had us go home cuz we thought so this was the crazy part because we thought that the miscarriage was done and that I passed everything, right? And then when we got home,
But I remember you laying in the hospital bed
uh-huh.
and you were sleeping, and I was at that moment. I was kind of, I was crying at that moment when you were sleeping because I'm like, oh my gosh, my wife just went through this. I just lost my baby, you know.
No, that was the second time that we had to go. So the first time that we went in was when the miscarriage was happening. We had no idea. We thought it was done. So even the doctor that saw us, he was like, "Oh, you're good. Like you went through the miscarriage. We're gonna just send you home. Just go home." And we're just like, "Okay, so what do we do now? Call your OB and then schedule to go in." Like schedule an appointment the next day to go in to see her. And then we went in the next day. Hold on. I'm trying to think back because it's been a while, but I just remember everything just being so traumatizing. But after they sent us back home, I think it was that night that it started happening again. And more stuff started coming out and more blood. And then we called the OB and then they had us go in to see her first thing in the morning. And that's when they scheduled the DNC. And then I remember just like, I don't know, it was crazy because I remember being in the office with her and then she was getting her tools. I don't know if you remember this, but she started scraping stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just whatever was still left in there. And then I thought that was it. I thought she scraped everything out that was just kind of left in there in my body.
Probably like tissue and
Yeah.
blood and stuff.
And there was stuff. And then after that, then I had to get scheduled for the DNC to like completely clear everything out.
What is a DNC?
I don't remember what it stands for, but it's basically they put you to sleep and then they get something to like start suctioning everything out. So for her, she's scraping whatever's at the surface level. But when you go in for this DNC, this is when they're sucking everything that's in there to get it out. So you stop going through the miscarriage.
They're like vacuuming all of the loose particles in you to clean you out.
Yeah, that
So
your body
you
can't dispel naturally on its own.
and so you probably don't get any infections,
Yeah, that too. They have to
right?
completely clean everything out.
So I remember that because you had to endure that on your own. When they put
Mm-hmm.
you to sleep, they took you away, and I had to be in the waiting room for a bit. And I'm like, damn, what's gonna happen right now? Like
Yeah.
I can't even be there during the whole procedure, and so I think both of us were kind of scared out of our minds.
Mm-hmm.
But when you were done, I think it was only like 30 minutes, right?
I have no
I think it
idea.
was 30 minutes,
The
and
procedure itself,
it's
I
fast.
think it's more of the waiting time to see when I wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, yeah.
So, how was it when you woke up? Were
Uh,
you like relieved that you were taken care of, or were you more sad that you lost the baby and like now it's, you know, I don't know. How were you
I
feeling?
think I was just trying to process everything, and I think it's more so of like being relieved because now I know that it's done, and I am I'm not as worried about having to go home and worry about passing stuff again and like bleeding and being in
Yeah.
pain. So I was relieved there, but then it was also at that moment where I woke up and I'm in this bed. I have like a diaper on from going through this procedure
Yeah.
to stop the bleeding. And it's just so surreal just knowing that everything that we were hoping against happened, and it confirmed that I wasn't pregnant anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just
Like you can only imagine, what we were going through as like excited new parents, right?
yeah.
We're on our phones researching everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're trying to buy things. We told our parents about, being pregnant.
We had huge announcements because I found out that I was pregnant as soon as maybe I want to say 5 weeks because I just knew, and
Yeah.
it's still early. And at that time, no one really got pregnant or made announcements or anything like that. We were probably one of the first ones in the group, so we got excited. We didn't know that people usually wait until the first trimester is done before they announce it to friends and families and stuff like that. But for us, we were just so excited, and it was our first time, and we just wanted to share the news with everyone.
I don't think we told friends yet. It was just family.
No, we did. We told friends and family, and I think that's what made it more devastating because we made the announcement, and then as time was progressing, then that stuff started happening, and then I just remember shutting myself out from all of that and kind of distancing myself and not really telling anyone about what happened. I feel like we were keeping it private, and then
Well, what happened was after, you were taken care of at the hospital and had your procedures and things like that, and you come home, there's this whole healing process, like uh she can't stand for too long because she's still like, how long are you going to be bleeding for after this procedure?
yeah, I
Like
don't know.
like weeks, right? And so I think the whole thing was it took a month for your body to go back to normal from thinking it was pregnant to normal
Mm-hmm.
person body, and also having is it your uterus or your cervix? What is it?
I don't know.
Okay, so your vagina has to heal,
Yeah, just your whole
right?
body. Yeah.
And so that when we got home, it's like we set up an air mattress in the living room so
Mm-hmm.
you can lay there throughout the day, watch TV, so you're comfortable, have your legs up so you're not just profusely bleeding all the time.
Yeah, the crazy part is the way that you heal from a miscarriage is almost like healing from going through a pregnancy.
Yeah, because something came out of you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we even got to the point where like I really wanted to make you comfortable, and we went out and bought a brand new couch that had a
A sofa
sofa
bed.
bed,
Yeah.
right? So because I wanted you to all day just rest and be able to watch TV and do all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because I think at the house we were living at, it was so tiny that we didn't even have a TV in our bedroom. So if you were just laying in bed, you really had nothing to do.
Yeah, and I think we did that too because it was probably a good distraction to not be in the room and to be out in the living room and just have like the TV. Because I think at that time, I felt like we took it pretty hard, and I felt like I was going through depression. So I just remember being in bed every day, not wanting to do anything, not really wanting to eat, not wanting to talk to anyone, and just like crying a lot of the time because I could feel it physically, and I felt so weak, but also like mentally, I was so torn.
I remember there are some friends that were like, "Hey, can we come visit and bring you some stuff?" And I'm like, "Nah, like I don't want to see anybody right now," you know. And
Yeah.
we would turn people away. And I think it was like at least 4 months for us to now be able to start being a little bit out of this depressed mode,
Yeah.
and start living our normal life. But 4 months is a long time,
Yeah,
to.
so I went from being excited and making these pregnancy announcements to people to now trying to figure out, okay, so how do we start telling people that something happened and I'm no longer pregnant? I think that was one of the harder parts too because um I don't know. It's like how do you start that conversation? And if I'm already not wanting to talk to other people about it at all because I feel like I'm gonna cry as soon as it gets brought up, like how do we tell them, right?
I mean, why did you care so much? Were you ashamed or something? Or
I feel like yes, I was ashamed because having a miscarriage and just as a woman not being able to have a child was something that was very taboo
yeah.
and no one talked about it. No one talked about miscarriages around that time, and if people did, they just kept it private, or like they were just like, no, I can't let people know or they're going to think I failed as a woman because I couldn't keep this baby.
What's crazy is that social media 10 years ago, everyone always showed all the positive things on social media, right? This is why they say like people show their fake life because everything is happy. And so at that time, 10 years ago, no one is really showing all the bad stuff people were going through.
Yeah.
And, we also didn't for those 4 months. We just kind of like trying to just make ourselves. I'm trying to focus on her and healing, and then we're working on ourselves. We're trying to figure out, is there something wrong with us? Like, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with you? Like, now do we need to go see different doctors to figure out why, you had a miscarriage and stuff like that? And so, after the 4 months, we decided to just announce that you had a miscarriage.
Right.
And so many, people from YouTube, Instagram, whatever, were just saying like, "Oh my gosh, like I went through one. My mom, my sister, my aunt, and like pretty much everyone either went through one or knew someone
Yeah.
that went through one." And we're like, "Wow, people don't talk about this enough."
Yeah, I
You know?
think about 1 in 3 or 4 pregnancies end in a miscarriage.
Right.
Yeah. And
That's a lot.
yeah, and it's so crazy because we started hearing stories about other people, and we had people reaching out and saying, "Oh, I wish like this was something that people talked about more," because I felt like I was so embarrassed because I wasn't woman enough to have a child, and society kind of like shunned you for it or like made you feel like, oh, you're a disgrace if you
I
couldn't
don't
get
think
pregnant.
anybody ever thought about that about women who had miscarriages. I think that was just probably something that you guys.
It was just a taboo because it's kind of like I think even for guys, like if you were trying to get your wife pregnant, right, and then you can't, wouldn't you start questioning yourself like, oh my gosh, like what you're saying, like, am I fertile? Is there something wrong with my sperm? How come like we can't get pregnant? You know, you
Right.
start to question yourself, and I feel like that's the hardest part of it. So it's like trying to heal from that, and then at the same time you're trying to figure out like what's wrong with you because you couldn't keep the baby, and
Yeah.
then you're also like, oh, but also because we made this announcement, how do we go about telling people? So it's like all these added stressors, and I feel like nowadays people do wait. And I like after going through that, I wouldn't say I regret telling people as early as we did, but also at the same time it's probably better for
Well,
people to wait.
I mean, we only told, I really don't remember anymore, but, for us to actually get over the hump of that depression 4 months later, it was because we finally decided to tell people that you had a miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the support that we got, uh, it made it that much easier for us to start moving forward.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for that, if we didn't decide to announce it or post videos about it or
Yeah.
anything, we would have been in a depression much longer. You know, so
Exactly.
talking about it with people actually really, really helped us.
Yeah, and that's why I say like I don't have regrets about telling people as early as we did because of that we had that support system. So we had
Yeah.
people on YouTube, social media, but we also had friends and family who knew what we went through from the start. They saw us from the beginning to the end of the process and they
Yeah.
were there for us. So I feel like you know, that was one thing that helped us to be able to heal a lot quicker. It's like having
Yeah.
support from other people.
So, you know, after getting better in a better mental state and things like that, how long was it before we started to try again? Maybe like 9 months later?
No, I think we waited at least a year. Almost, I would say what? So that was in 2000 and what, 15 maybe? I think it took us like at least a year cuz I wasn't ready. I think I was so traumatized, and then every time we would think about it and start talking about it again and trying to get pregnant, I think my body was holding on to so much trauma. So I just remember getting anxious every time we would bring it up and like if we should start trying again.
Yeah.
And I would get flashbacks of like what my body went through, you know. The mental part was hard, but just also feeling it in my body, and it triggered certain feelings within my body just like
Yeah.
talking about it again.
It was definitely different trying the second time. Now the second time was like, it's down to business.
Yeah,
Right? Like, how do we get pregnant? What do we need to do?
Yeah, I feel like we made it more stressful in terms of like applying pressure, and then also because once you go through a miscarriage, you're always like, oh damn, what if it happens again? Like you always will have that in the back of your mind, and you're always so scared. So we're like, what can we do? What is the ovulation cycle? When do we need to do it? Like when is the safest time? And
But we got it down though.
We did.
Because we got
He
the
did.
ovulation schedule down. You know, it took a while because I think the first cycle we tried, you didn't get pregnant.
Right.
And then the second month we would try again. We call these cycles, right?
Mhm.
Cycles of trying. And it didn't happen again. And now I'm trying to be more scientific by month 2 because I'm like, oh shit. Now there's definitely something wrong with me or her because she is not getting pregnant easy, how like everyone else does. You know, we're still young at this age, right? And so now I'm trying to like get the scientific parts down of the ovulation schedule. What is the best 2 to 4 days to try and have a kid? The best positions, right? Like everything, right? Like the best foods to eat and all that stuff. And you know, what was going through your mind the first 2 months when it wasn't happening? And, you know, this is our second time trying to have a kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I guess I honestly don't remember. I think I was just so focused on everything else. But I think at that time I was probably like, well, you know, it took us this long to try for the first time. So, you know, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
I think it was we were so stressed the first 2 months.
Yeah.
And so by the third month, we were like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens.
Yes.
Let's not stress about it anymore.
Yep. And that's what they always say. It's always when you're not trying that you get pregnant. And that was that 1 month where like, you know what, whatever, we're just going to go with the flow, forget this schedule that we're trying to go based off of. And then we got pregnant.
Yeah. You got pregnant on the third month.
Yeah.
With our now daughter, Leia.
Yeah.
Right.
Our angel baby, right? Our rainbow baby.
Rainbow baby.
Yeah.
And so I think it's crazy that, you know, some people take a miscarriage actually very easy because, I don't know, they just get up and they do it again.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And usually when you do have a miscarriage, they always the doctors would recommend that you wait at least 2 to 3 cycles to get your body strong enough again, because some people, they jump into it so quickly and then they end up getting miscarriages again because your body has not healed yet. So that was always my advice to people.
Yeah, there's women out there who have like 10 miscarriages or like 7 years of miscarriages and whatnot. And, you know, for us, having that one miscarriage was so traumatizing for us. And like I said, everyone's different. Some people aren't even traumatized at all from having one.
Yeah.
You know, but it might be what you went through during that process. Maybe some people didn't have the baby drop into the toilet. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So like we saw that happen, we went through that, and that's what kind of like uh just messed up our heads.
Yeah.
But now going from that to having kids, like to me it was so worth it to get back in it, to
Mm-hmm.
try, because look at what we have now.
Yeah, and even though we still have like two precious babies with us, I feel like once you go through a miscarriage, it's just something that will always be in the back of your mind. Like, yes, you get through it, but do you forget about it? Probably not. And I would say too, as the woman who goes through the miscarriage, when you're pregnant and going through that whole process, you're still thinking about it in the back of your mind because you're always like, well, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to lift anything. Like, there's so many things that you shouldn't be doing, right? So I was just trying to play it safe, but in the back of my mind, and up until the babies were here, I'm like, I hope nothing happens. I hope baby's healthy. I hope like that we don't lose them along the way, you know? So it's always having that fear of like loss in the back of your mind.
There's I think what really helped us get through it was talking to other people who went through even more traumatizing and crazier
Mm-hmm.
moments.
Yeah.
There's people who like they don't even have this little miscarriage that we had. They had this big thing where at like it takes 9 months for you to be pregnant and then give birth.
For the baby to develop.
There's people who had like 8 months and the baby dies inside them.
Yeah, and
then
they have to give birth to the baby.
they have to push out
Yeah.
a baby that had passed, and my cousin went through that. You know what I mean? Like, so talking to people who went through that and seeing like their emotional state and their mental state, like it's really, really sad. And I felt like, okay, it could have been worse for us.
Yeah,
right?
and as crazy as it sounds, I'm like, yes, we went through something that was so traumatic and horrible, but other people had it so much harder.
Yeah.
And when they go through that stuff, like we've even have friends till this day that still had problems with like having a baby and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just going back through those feelings again and what we experienced and trying to be there for them. Because
Yeah, I feel like the hardest thing for us was that we actually just saw the sack fall into the toilet.
yeah, that was
Like,
crazy to see.
I think if it was just some spotting,
Yeah.
and then you go to the doctor and they're like, well, yeah, you had a miscarriage, now we got to do a DNC and clean you out.
Yeah.
That's, you probably won't be as depressed,
As
right?
as traumatized.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's so important to find a good OB, because this OB, I think, made the situation so much harder. Because if I didn't have to go through the whole process of doing it, because some people, they'll go through the whole process naturally and they're done. That's it.
Yeah.
But some people, as soon as they know they're going through the miscarriage, their OB will send them to do the DNC right away, so they don't have to go through that.
Well, we made the decision to wait to kind of pray that we are going to have a baby.
True.
So that was on us. But I felt like because she was such an experienced OB, she cleaned you out very well and the healing process was easier. She knew what she was doing.
I can't remember.
I remember you telling me that like now we understand why she was the way she was, because she's experienced it. And the way that she did the procedure on you, it was really it was one of the best ways from what I remember, and that she took care of you very well. So there's times that we will read things, and sometimes during the procedure, those doctors infections happen or they don't clean it out as well and stuff like that. So I was happy that she knew what she was doing and that you were totally fine after so many months.
Yeah. I think it was just more of the way that she communicated things. And I think as the woman that's going through it, like there's a time and place for everything. So it's kind of like when you're going through something like this, you need someone that's going to be more like nurturing and caring when you go through something like that, because I felt like that just completely shattered the whole experience for me and like destroyed it for me. So just hearing all of that stuff, I'm like, I don't remember. I was just traumatized because of the way she told me. Like I just, I couldn't.
I remember how happy you were that when you realized how good of a doctor she was after the procedure.
Mm, yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember. That was too traumatizing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you have any advice for any women out there who are going through a miscarriage or just had one?
Um, my advice always is to go through the full experience, because when you go through a miscarriage, there's different stages that you're going through of grief. And honestly, I feel like you need to go through all of them, and you need to completely heal yourself from it, physically, mentally. Have a good support system, have good friends and family. It doesn't have a lot. It doesn't have to be a lot. Just have enough people who will be there to care for you, listen to you, understand you. Um, and not shutting yourself out from people, because I feel like even though we did that, and we tried to heal on our own, it took longer. And because we finally let people into our lives to be there for us, it helped more, because it let us know how much people cared about us and wanted to take care of us and be there for us.
Yeah, I think I don't want to sound, straightforward or blunt here, but um anyone who's going through this right now, I'm sure it's going to be one of the hardest times that you've ever been through. And I would say that trying not to, like Christina said, you got to go through the grief, you got to go through all phases, but don't be so stuck on the depression, and you got
Mm-hmm.
to try to move forward because one in three women go through a miscarriage, which is
It's
that's a
very
lot.
common. It's
That's a
so
lot.
common,
So
and there's nothing.
it's not just you. There's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with you. It's just
exactly.
normal. I think it's your body got into shock that you're having a baby, and it's like changing and it's
Yeah,
shocked, and that's my thing.
especially when it's like your first pregnancy too, because some people, like, your body is not used to that at all. So when it happens, it might think that it's like a virus or something attacking
Yeah.
your body, and then it fights against it. So that's why it happens
So
often.
for me, the sooner you can move forward, the sooner you can keep trying. And, whether you get pregnant or you take the next steps in like why you can't get pregnant. And now you got to do, what is it called? It's not called IV. It's called,
What do you mean, IVF?
yeah,
Yeah.
IVF or adoption or whatever it is that you got to do. At least
Mm-hmm.
you get to move forward and figure out how you can have a kid.
Yeah.
So, um,
It's okay to grieve, but don't get stuck on it for too long.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
move
my
forward.
recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, do you have anything else you want to say for this episode?
Um, I mean, I don't know. Just if anyone is going through it, you can always reach out to us. And I feel like even till this day, we have people that will reach out and ask for advice. And I will always try to give them the best advice that I can on what to do, how to heal, and stuff like that. But yeah, just having a good support system. Even if we're not your friends, we're still people that you can come to, because that's one thing that we would share and have in common.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, guys, if you enjoyed this episode and you found it helpful, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Also, give us a review on Spotify.
Let us know how
So,
we're doing.
we're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And so, we'll see you guys next time on the next episode of Love and Rice Podcast.